Many people say that they want to write a book, yet 9 out of every 10 people who start writing a book never finish it, leaving one of their biggest dreams unfulfilled. So, what is it about the 1 in 10 people who do finish writing their book? What do they have, and what drives them to complete their books, their plays, and their songs? Welcome to the Editor's Desk, where we explore their writing experiences, their motivations, and their struggles. And now, here are your hosts, author, writing coach, and self-publishing guide, Lynn Everard, and author, Louise Gomez. Florida, and you are watching the Editor's Desk. My name is Lynn Everard.
Welcome to the Editor's Desk. My name is Louise Gomez.
So, Louise, you ever think about how we so quickly form stereotypes of people? We look at someone and we think we know them, and we've got them all figured out, and then later on we figure out that we were completely wrong. It was just the opposite.
And sometimes that's just our automatic. We don't even realize. I mean, I'll speak for myself. Sometimes maybe I don't even realize I'm doing that.
Yeah, it's like we're programmed, right, to do that. So that's why I think tonight's guest is going to be so much fun, because we're going to get into some of that with our guests. So maybe without further ado, you can introduce our guest.
I will. I would love to read his bio so we can get the information about him. So Morten Boutrup is a Danish author who debuted with his first novel, Dismantia, in 2020. Morten Boutrup has previously written short stories and, among other things, helped establish the journal Crime Files in 2000. Otherwise, he has spent most of his active working life working for the private business community. Born in Denmark, graduated from a political scientist from the University of Aalborg, married with 2 children, divorced and then married again, employed in IT, electronics, trained hypnotist. We're going to have to talk about that. Wrote short stories for many years, published the journal Crime Files, and spent 17 years writing his first novel, Dismantia. Morten, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming all the way from your country to visit visit us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I know you through my friend Lynn. I know he's been working on your, touching up or editing your story. But tell us, how did this story come about? Because it says that you started doing this many years ago. So tell us maybe how this started to come about. Was it an idea you always had, or what was that about?
No, in fact it was, I think it was 2003, where I was writing some small Christmas novels for my children. I did that often at that time. Every Christmas I write a novel for them. And then was starting writing one, where you start the 1st of December. That was the first chapter, and 2nd of December. But suddenly it took me, and I write a lot of pages, and the story was just
flowing,
driving around out there, and I couldn't control it. So suddenly I said, no, this is not a Christmas story. This is my novel, my real novel, which I have dreamed about for many years that I should write. So then I started, and I was writing, and after 1 year, 1.5 years, I'd finished it. But I don't think it was very good. So I didn't believe in myself about this novel. So I took it again, and then I read through that, and I changed a lot of things in that. It took me 2 years.
Okay.
And then after 1 year, I took it again, and I would rewrite it again. And I think I did that 10 times.
Wow. Did you
And
change a lot along the way?
A lot,
Or?
yes,
You
a
did?
lot of things
Okay.
has been changed in the book, because in fact when I was reading it the second time, I think no, I don't like myself in that book. So I changed myself. I mean, I'm the main character in the
Okay,
book.
okay.
I have a little different name in the book, but in fact it also is a part of my life.
Sure.
I was telling. So that's why. So I've changing it maybe 10 times, maybe more. And it was, laying on my computer or in
Right.
my drawer, and that was it. And then my daughter, she said to me, "No, you have to publish this. I mean,
Good.
you have been reading that for 17 years. You have to publish that." And we made a deal. She did something that I should think she should do in her life.
Oh, I like
And
that.
then I take contact with the publisher in Denmark, and then, then it was published in Denmark. So that, in fact, is what's happening about my story, and that's why it took me 17 years
Wow.
to write it.
Well, we're excited to have it in English, right? So that we can read
Yes,
the beautiful story.
As I started working through the book, editing the English translation directly from the Danish, the thing that struck me right away was the preface.
Yes.
And there's a story you tell in there, which is from Hans Christian Andersen, about Big Klaus and Little Klaus. But it's such an allegory for what we talked about kind of in the opening, which was how we stereotype people based upon characteristics that we have deemed good or bad in someone. So would you take us through that, briefly take us through that story and help us see how this narrative of good versus evil, and then maybe you can share a little bit about the fact that this is really what is in the story of Desmantia as well, right? So you do the preface, and then you bring the reader into the actual story, but it's like you're reading two versions of the same basic struggle that we all have in life.
Yes. Yes. When my children was young, I was telling them a lot of stories, and most of them was H.C. Andersen stories, because I think he has a wonderful universe to tell stories within. You can read his books in many, many ways. And the one I loved was Big Klaus and Little Klaus, and I think I've told my children that a lot of times, this specific story, and one day my little daughter said to me, "Oh, he is really mean." And I thought she was talking about Stor Klaus, Big Klaus, because Big Klaus is really a mean person in that story. But she was not talking about Big Klaus. She was talking about Small Klaus. Because in the end of this story, Big Klaus will die. And he will die because Little Klaus is also some kind of a mean person. And he was cheating him to jump out to a river and drown and all that. It was really terrible. And I thought when I was young that Stor Klaus was the bad and Little Klaus was the good. But in fact, you can turn that around. Little Klaus is just as bad as Big Klaus. So, and that was some kind of a break in my story. Who is a bad and who is a good guy, who is a hero and who is the devil. And I think I tried in my story to work a little bit around that, to see okay, here's a main character. In fact, he think he's a good guy himself, but sometimes he's very bad. He's very bad. And that's why I changed the story so many times, because I think, oh, see, well, he's crazy. He's too bad. I would like to be better. So that's why I changed the main character to be much better than he was when I started. So that's, I mean, and that's, if you read the book, you can see all through the book that I'm twisting the person from be good to be bad, to be good to be bad, because I think that's how we are as person, as human being.
Yeah, agreed. Right. I think that's part of our human experience. We have just, good, bad experiences.
The light and the shadow.
The light and the shadow.
Coexisting within us.
Yes.
And almost like battling for power, but yet we really can't get rid of either one.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Even if we try, we are still light and shadow. That's the nature of being human.
Yes.
So I thought that was just a brilliant way to introduce the book.
Yes.
Because then you see that, and then you go into the actual story, which is not the same story. It's a completely different story, but it follows the theme. And then one thing I will say that was very fascinating, because you mentioned Morten, the main character in the story, and we see his struggles because he's you. We see his struggles with his own light and shadow.
Yes, that's right.
Right, and so it's really a great story, but there's this underlying huge lesson, huge learning that we can all experience, and I think that's what it's a fantasy novel with a message.
I love
right?
that.
I mean, that really is what it is.
And do the Desmontians have their own dialect or their own language?
Yes, they have. They have their own language.
I love that.
It's much different from Danish or English or all other languages.
That's beautiful.
And I think that was my other daughters. When she was very small, we were playing with the words, call something with other words,
Sure, right.
just for fun.
Right.
And I think, that could be funny to invade, to make a new language for this book, this universe, as I'm totally calling. That's a special universe.
I love that. It's a universe.
Yeah. Well, and
nice.
One of the other things I just realized about the book was that, if you take something like Lord of the Rings, right? It's a trilogy.
Yes.
And it's an amazing story, but you're still looking at it from the outside in. Okay? So if you take that same concept and apply it, but your Desmontia is the same thing, but now we are inside the story because you are inside the story, and you take us into the story with you.
Yeah.
And it's a completely different experience. Even though we can call it a fantasy novel genre, but it's a completely different experience than watching reading these other books, because this one you actually go inside of the story.
Yes.
Like the undercover message or something. I'm not even sure what you would call it, but yeah, it's I thoroughly enjoyed it. Now, when you read a novel, I just want to share this tidbit of information. Typically, when you read a novel, you have the ability to read it cover to cover in a day or two if you want to. Okay, so I didn't get to do that because we had to wait for sections, groups of chapters to be translated. So I read this book over the course of 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Right? A completely different experience. And so my curiosity would get the best of me, and then I would email Morten and I'd say, well, all right, tell me about this character. Are they, are they going to do this or are they going to do that?
Oh, you're started
Right?
making up, imagining what how you thought it
Yes.
was going to unfold.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a completely different
Suspenseful.
experience for me, but I had an amazing experience with it. So when it does come out, I think I'm going to actually read it again, but read it in the 2 or 3 days
Yeah.
that people would typically take to read a novel like that.
Yeah.
What's so great as well is, after 2020, the whole pandemic, I feel like so many people got creative and were able to share their creativity. And so that a lot of new authors are surfacing because that's what's been going on, been accessing your creativity. So that's wonderful that you're able to do that and share. And it to me, I feel like you're still wanting, you seem like a creative person, like you're always going to write, I'm imagining.
That's right.
Yeah.
I always write some small stories. I tell small stories. My life is to tell stories.
I love that.
Just ask my family, and of course I'm just right now I'm writing on the next version of Desmontia.
Wow.
And I'm nearly finished, in fact, but I have to read it many times.
Right.
Yeah.
Not 17 years, I don't think.
Okay.
but I will read it a lot of times to be sure that other people also would like it. But I'm working with the same universe and also some of the same persons who's in the first one.
Oh, nice.
But Desmontia will just in the first version it's a smaller universe.
Okay.
The next one it was really big universe. So it with a lot of other funny
More
things.
characters? You added more characters?
Yeah, more characters, and we will travel out of the cave universe and out to maybe another dimension.
Okay.
Oh, I like
Wow.
that.
So that's the next version.
So I'm really curious about something, and to write a book like this, to take 17 years to write it,
Yes.
what was the biggest lesson you learned about yourself during that time?
Yes. What was the biggest? I think it was when I started. I was a person who was, a little too funny.
Okay.
I mean, the life was easy and like this.
Yeah.
And after I've been writing the book and reading it a lot of times, I said, no, I have to change a little bit about myself, because I have to be a little more serious as a person, because I have to take myself seriously. So, I mean, that's maybe one of the most important thing I've learned through this 17 years. And of course, then I'm getting older. I was in the 40s, and now I'm in the 60s. So of course, you have also been matured a little bit.
Sure.
I have children, I have the grandchildren, and so on. So I mean, maybe you get a little more serious in your life through that
process.
maturing of yourself, your personality.
How beautiful is that? One day his grandchildren are going to read this book and say, oh my God, look at this story that my grandfather wrote. Like, that's such a beautiful legacy to leave, to teach your children about creativity and, writing and imagination. So it's a beautiful gift to be able to leave that legacy. And same with us. With our book, I know that for me it was important to be able to have that sense of accomplishment and say, look, if I can do this, guys, you can do this.
Right. Well, and
Right?
yes, because in 17 years, like, how many times did you think about just quitting?
hundreds of times. I said, "Oh, this is garbage. I have to throw it out," you know. So a lot of times, and that's
Yeah,
also because I'm educated in political science.
Yes.
I'm not a journalist. I'm not used to write beautiful, I mean, there's really some tools that I have to learn myself
Sure.
in that period, where other people who has been educated in these areas will be much better for that. So
So you were willing to go out of your comfort zone, do something that you've never done before, create a book that even has its own language. I mean, to me, that's such a beautiful story. And that story in and of itself is beautiful to be able to share with your children, your grandchildren.
of course.
It's a great example, right? Very good example
Yeah, it
to
really
show
is.
them.
So, are there influences, books that you've read yourself, maybe when you were a child, that put this love of this kind of story in you?
Yes, H.C. Andersen. A lot.
Okay.
I read a lot of his
Yeah.
stories, and I think that was fantastic. In fact, I haven't been reading the Lord of the Rings, and I haven't been reading Harry Potter. And people said, "Oh, it's Harry Potter. This story you are making." I said, "No, it isn't, because I haven't been reading it. So I don't know anything about that." But that's how it is. I remember when I was a child, I loved to use my fantasy to, when we were in school and should write some small novels in the first classes. And I was always make stories about fantasy persons, fantasy animals, dragons, and all that. So maybe I have it from the beginning of my life that I have a great
Wow,
fantasy.
that's great.
So
And your English is excellent, by the way. So
Thank you.
yes, I think it's, to be able to come here and interview and answer questions. We're so lucky to have you.
Thank you.
And that your English is fine. It's great.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
So, when you started writing, did you ever think you'd actually finish?
Yes, in fact, because everything I'm doing in life, I will
Right.
finish it.
Okay.
Of some time, but not next year, but maybe in 10 years or something. So yes, I knew I would finish it. But there was, a lot of bumps on the way that I
Right,
think,
right.
oh, maybe I should. But inside here, there was a goal. Of course, I would finish
Right.
this book.
Well, so some of these questions that we ask are because, for Louise and I, our mission with this show is to encourage people to write
Yes.
and to read as well, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have writers but no readers, well, you don't really have writers for very long. And people who read become great writers. And so the combination of the two allows this work to continue. And every once in a while, it gets people out of their little screens.
Yes,
Yes.
Right?
that's
Yeah,
the
that's
goal.
right.
Everybody to get off the screens. Yes.
And go into that world, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Of fantasy and but the blending of fantasy and message, right, to me is really, really important. And
It is.
especially for a book like this. And so, it's a great story and a great message. And you mentioned you're working on the second one.
Yes.
You said you're almost done with it.
Almost done, yes.
Okay.
Nice.
And that's terrific. And, have you thought about what comes next after that?
Number 3.
Okay.
Okay. He's like, I'm not going to
So
stop.
kind of a trilogy. then.
Yes,
Nice.
yes,
Trilogy.
that's my plan. It should be
That's
a trilogy.
great.
So, and no more of that. And then I'm finished.
Maybe a movie after
Yeah.
that. You never know. Maybe a movie.
I could see
I
that.
could totally see
see it
that.
as a movie.
I could too. The way,
Yeah.
right, between all these different types of like Harry Potter, like he was saying, and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
That type of book is so wanted.
Yes.
There's such a great community of people who like to read these types of fantasy types of books.
Yeah, and I think, in fact, I didn't like the word fantasy because I mean, my book is just H.C. Andersen. It's not, for me. It's not fantasy. It's another kind of stories. For me, it's adventure. It's all that kind of things that I think is positive. But my publisher said, no, it's fantasy, Morten, and you can't change that. so that was why it was become a fantasy. But I think I like more the other words.
Okay. Maybe coming to the States, visiting to the States will inspire new creativity. Is this your first time coming here? Or have you been to the States before?
I've not been here before.
Yes.
In Florida, I've been in other places in
Okay.
US.
Okay.
So in California and
Nice.
New York and
Okay.
Boston, and so it's not the first time, but it's the first time here in Florida.
Okay, maybe that'll inspire new creativity for the Dismontians.
It is because, you know, I was visiting these springs
Uh-huh.
with the caves, you know,
Yes.
through the water, and I said, oh, it's brilliant for my this book I'm writing now.
Yeah.
It's brilliant to the end of that book to include these caves, but I would not tell you anymore.
I had a feeling something was going to inspire you, seeing some different terrain and different.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So
Good.
it's really great. It's a wonderful country. So, I mean, I've seen a lot here, and when I've been here,
Nice.
so that's good.
Well, that is
Really good.
kind of how it works, right? That you know, we write according to the lives we live, right, and what we see.
Yeah.
And then being able to translate it into fantasy, then it gets really interesting. So,
Yes.
so what would you like to share as we get close to the end of our show? It always goes by so fast, but what would you like to share with our audience about what you're up to, or things that they need to know or could benefit from knowing about what you're up to?
Well, I think I'll share that when I started this process, I was a little nervous about the reaction of other people for what I've been writing, because, I mean, it's really, you go really into the heart when you are writing a
Yeah.
book, you know that.
Yeah.
But I'll just tell people, it's not the way it is. I've heard a lot positive things about my book, and you must not be nervous, and you must not drop your plans of writing, because it's gold. It's gold for you. It's a process for you. It's therapy for you to write. It has been for me, so it will always be for all other persons, I think.
Absolutely agree. And you get to share that gift with the world now.
Yeah.
That we get to enjoy.
Yeah.
I can't wait to finish it. I have not. I started reading it. I have not finished it, but I cannot wait
Okay.
to finish it so we can discuss.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next week,
Yeah. Who
our
do we have
guest
next week?
is Coralie Hutchinson.
Oh yes.
And Coralie, this I think is her second children's book, and the timing of it is perfect
Yes,
because
it
it is
is.
just coming out and just becoming available on Amazon now.
I know. I'm excited for her. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get
And,
to share that.
You know, one of the fascinating things for us is everyone that we have on the show, they're so multifaceted
So
in
true.
who they are, right?
Yeah.
Like when we had Paul Martini on, we had no idea of all the things he was involved in.
Right.
Right? Look, he was like Renaissance man, right?
It's so true.
And so, but it's like that with all of our guests.
Yes.
You know, they are multi-talented and they go way beyond, just the little pigeonhole that we sometimes want to put them in, because we do that with everybody because it makes it easier for us.
Yes, exactly.
So we thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you so much.
And we will look forward to seeing you next week.
Yep.
And
Stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us.
have a great week, everybody.
Yes, definitely.
Imagine rediscovering a past life.
Now imagine finding the person you shared it with.
And I just told all my friends, I'm like, you guys have to read this because I can't put it down. And I have not even gotten to the half of the book yet.
We are Lynn, Everard, and Louise Gomez, and we are the authors of the book, The Reuniting of Two Past Lives and the Unveiling of the 12 Sacred Lessons.
We invite you to purchase the book and discover the magic.
Even if you have never written a book, you are still an author. In fact, we all are. In every moment, each of us is writing our own unique story that we call our lives. Because many of us are, as in the lyrics of the Dan Hill song, Sometimes When We Touch, writers still trapped within our truth. If this is you, why not start writing your thoughts in a journal? It will help you get your truth on paper and could just be the start of your own book. And don't forget to join us here every week for the next edition of The Editor's Desk.